So you want to know how to beat chronic pain? Well, in today's episode, we are diving deeper in the series of how to beat chronic pain and pain management, pain science, all that stuff. Yesterday, we opened up a really big topic. We covered the six,
Core concepts.
Core concepts, yeah. We're going to go into that deeper right now. If this is the first time rolling with the Unity Tribe, we're usually a bit more professional and organised than this, but anyway, my name's Yanni Baumeister. Behind the camera, we got Richard Lellies. Together with my brother Rad, we founded Unity Gym and the UMS program. Now, if you want to know the secrets to our success, you can download all of our awesome philosophies and content principles and sort of hacks on movement, nutrition and flexibility. Strength, nutrition, flexibility. You can go to our website, www.unitygym.com. It's at the bottom of every page in the free resources section. Now, to my left, I have Phil White, aka Dr. Phil. Hates me saying it, but I say it every time, despite his best efforts to stop me. The reason why, it's a bit of an inside joke. Phil's done a doctorate in physiotherapy.
Incorrect. Doctor of physiotherapy. That's the fine detail there. I don't have a doctorate.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
No
so
MD, no
opposite.
doctorate, but I am a doctor of physiotherapy.
Yeah,
so
there you go. And so I just take the piss and criticise him a lot for not getting a doctorate.
Yeah, when 8 solid years of uni was not enough.
No, that's exactly right. I'm joking. Yeah. Now, we are, to steer this ship back in the right direction so we don't hit an iceberg and sink, we are deep diving into pain science. And yesterday in the six core principles of, what do we call them? We called them...
the 6 core concepts of
pain science. Number one is that 100% of the time, pain derives from the brain. And unlike what we're sort of led to believe, which is that we have these pain receptors all over our body that are triggering the pain when there's damage to the tissue there, we don't really. It's not really how it works. And that's what we're trying to go deep on because, as we highlighted yesterday, pain management is something that is a real big problem in society, and we're, for many, many years, the go-to has just been to prescribe really heavy, addictive, in many cases life-altering opiate drugs to sort of help manage the discomfort, but it's not really, it's treating the symptom, not the cause, and
often not treating the symptoms very well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, as we talked about yesterday, it's such a massive burden on the healthcare system. And I mean, the stats were used from the American system where it was $635 billion a year, and that was back in 2012, and the opiate epidemics only got worse.
So it'd be even more. And we actually only quoted over 600 billion, but then when we went back to have a look at some more accurate data from now,
when you're rounding off $35 billion, just that's when you know you're...
you know that the number's big, And as we said yesterday, it's more than cancer, diabetes, and heart disease combined. The budget spent on preventative measures are more than those three combined, and they are the three biggest killers in humanity today.
And when we say preventative measures there, I'd argue that's I'm big on using precise words here, and I think the fact that when you're saying there is preventative for pain, it's not quite right. It's more reactive, really.
Reactive, yeah, you're right.
It's,
absolutely, you're right.
I mean, I'm sure there is a budget that goes into sort of preventive pain stuff, but the vast majority of it comes down to medication, and that's really reactive. And so, it's such a huge epidemic costs so much money for all of the world's healthcare systems, but it has poor outcomes.
Yep.
Like the fact that they're spending all that money and still everyone's addicted to opiates and are still in lots of pain and not being able to achieve what they want to achieve in their life because they're held back from their pain.
That's
not being able to
right.
engage in exercise, which then has flow-on effects to those other things we talked about, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all of the and cancer. The fact that pain is such a limiting factor for all of these other healthy behaviors and happiness.
Exactly right.
So it's huge, and that's why we're going into it. And I think it's really well timed that it's after our goal setting talk, because I think one of the big things with setting goals and trying to achieve them is overcoming barriers. And one of the biggest barriers to to getting into your physical goals, at least, as well as many other goals, is pain.
Is chronic pain. That's exactly right, and often injury. Now, I think one of the best ways that we could start this show off is to actually address some of the questions that have come through.
Absolutely.
Because what we're going to talk about today, guys, and I had a really, really great conversation with. I only train really two people. They're one-on-one clients. They're sort of affluent CEOs who are of a mature age, around the mid-50s. And I had a really good chat with one of my my guys who's become a friend of mine in regards to his big, hairy, audacious goals when he came here, because he came compromised. He had really sort of decent back injury, and he'd been to see some surgeons, and 3 out of 4 surgeons had said that he needed a spinal fusion and huge surgical intervention. And we, despite their best efforts to put him on the table and cut him up, we convinced him not to. And that's not to say that if you've been told you need spinal surgery that we're telling you not to do it, but in this specific circumstance...
The joys of a second opinion / fourth opinion there.
Fourth opinion, that's exactly right.
It's very expensive, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people to afford 4 different specialists to have a look at you. So
that's exactly right.
Definitely acknowledge that.
So we went to town rehabbing this guy, and his big, hairy, audacious goal, we talked about this and the why and all that, was that he would just love to be able to play golf and swing a golf club again. And, he's getting to that age where it's kind of groovy to join a prestigious golf club, and that's something he wanted to do, but he couldn't swing a golf club. His back was so stuffed. So he's since done all that, and he's achieved everything he wanted to achieve, and he's playing golf. He's joined the golf club. He's playing golf once a week now, and he wants to start ramping that up. And he's sort of talking to me about, this issue that we've really overcome now, and I had a deep conversation with him about this concept.
I'd like to just pause there again, because I am a bit of a stickler for words, but you just kind of offhandedly said that his back was stuffed. Yeah. And stuffed has the implication that it's something that once it's stuffed, it's done. You can't fix it. And so I think it's really important to kind of just be really aware of the language we use around pain and injury, because as we're talking about today with pain identity and injury identity, the words you use to describe your condition, or the way that health professionals and personal trainers use to describe your condition, will really impact your own thoughts, moods, and beliefs that has long-term effects.
How good is he? He's pulling me up, and I'm a huge believer of this. This is something that we talked about around
it's so
psychology
easy to do,
and goal-setting psychology. That's right. And it's something that I cannot stress to you enough. The words that come out of your mouth contribute on such a high level to your program and your story and all of that. So anyway, to jump back on topic, Phil's absolutely right, and I agree with him 110 million %. When I was having this discussion, I said, the next step of your process, your journey, is not to get much stronger or much more flexible. It's to, once and for all, separate yourself from this pain identity that you've formed over the last 20 years of your life, of this compromised guy who's got a buggered back, and because it's not anymore, and irrespective of whether from time to time you feel stiffness or this or that, that's behind you now, and I think playing golf more regularly is a great way to reaffirm to yourself and your brain that yes, you are no longer a compromised human.
Yeah, and I think one thing, an interesting note to think about, is that if you were to scan this guy's back, back when he wasn't able to play golf, and before he started training, full on with Yanni, and we'll just mention that he also does quite a lot of other activity. He now walks. He's moved closer to his work, so he can walk everywhere. He gets in 3 swims a week, so he's really
5 now.
He's done 5. So he's gone really big on.
And he gets a weekly massage with Phil, because he's a slut like me and likes to lie on the table and get touched.
Yeah, good with the words. Anyway, so I'd just like to point out that if you were to scan his back before he started all this and now afterwards, you might kind of hope that you'd see this magical change where he's got a 20-year-old, sort of super spine of a healthy young person. But if you look at it, it will likely look almost exactly the same.
Yeah, that's exactly
and
right.
So I think that's just such a key thing to understand here, and what we talked about yesterday with, pain not being always representative of damage, is that if you were to scan this guy's back now and have a look at it, they might still be referring him off to surgeons, but his functional ability and his pain experience and his the things he's able to do are totally different to where he was a year ago.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Okay, so do you want to dive into which question would you like to dive into
start from the top. We always like to I guess, encourage the people who get in there early and get in there with.
Yep. 3 hours, so it's going to be Graham first.
Or, nah.
Well,
Graham.
that's only 3 hours ago. So it'd be Dave Baxter first. That's 15 hours ago. So that he would have got in first.
Yeah, okay. I thought he was. I was so sure that Jay was first. Okay, anyway, Graham Baxter. So, there is a lot here.
And good on you guys
Yeah,
for,
really appreciate
like, people have really opened up and shared a lot about themselves. And so we're not going to have time to answer everybody, but we've got a couple of really good ones here, and it's really in line with what we're talking about today. So
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a good way to kick it off.
Yeah.
You go.
So Dave said, after a traumatic lower back injury in my 20s, I spent 15 years thinking the injury continued to haunt me, always hurting on a daily basis. I finally discovered through my doctor and prescribed physical therapist that the pain I was carrying with me was a pinched nerve, sciatic nerve. It was a revelation to realize that the nerve was firing faultily from oversensitivity, and it was a sensation pain that I could literally work through, retraining my nervous system to mostly stop sending me the pain signals. There were days that squatting or stretching my hamstrings would instantly send jolts of electric numbing pain down my leg, and yet, if I just kept going, nothing was actually wrong. And having suffered actual acute injuries before, this was definitely not how injuries worked. Acute injuries let you know they're hurt, and with every additional stress you try and put it, it would hurt more. I spent 15 years ignoring my lower body because of this, but it was the last few years I've regained nearly all the mobility and strength I thought I'd lost forever.
So 15 years ignoring is better word would be neglecting his lower body. He hadn't trained his lower body for 15 years because of this issue he was having.
Yeah, I still squat and deadlift relatively light weights compared to most because I have so much catching up to do. But the fact I can put weight on these movements at all was something that the pain signals I was receiving were never going to let me consider without a very conscious and careful strategy to get past them.
Can I just stop you there for a sec, because that's the end of a paragraph. Now, Dave, if you're watching this or if you catch this episode, that is absolutely 100% fine that you're lifting slightly lower than other people, because remember, you've spoken about two lifts, deadlift and squat, that require a real focus on progressive overload, because it's about banking reps and conditioning all of the bodies. We speak about this a lot, especially with the deadlift and the squat. There's such good exercises, but most of the time those exercises don't injure people. What injures people is the pace that they try to increase the load without allowing their body to properly adjust. And the very fact that you've highlighted that you neglected your lower body for 15 years means that you're starting way behind the people that are probably lifting.
Yeah, we talk about training age quite a lot, and training age being like how much time have you spent conditioning your body to deal with these sort of activities. And if you've done that for, someone's done something consistently for 20 years, their body's going to be really well adapted to it. So good idea to start low and
just progress through. Exactly.
Yeah, as I've talked about before, it's
absolutely does not mean that you can't ever lift heavy. You just need to continually, slowly and progressively overload the body, just like everyone else.
Yep. So I'll continue on. So I can now distinguish the different kind of jolt I get from a pinched nerve and the pain I get from actual minor sprains and strains, etc. Once you glom onto the difference.
I think
that might just be
it's a typo.
Colloquial term. It's not difficult to keep track of what your body is telling you and why, even when it's misfiring and sending you contradictory signals. But it's a journey, and one you take only when you absolutely have to. But it is so much better than the alternative of suffering through the false pain forever and ever. And learning how to mobilize your touchy area generally helps with any justified pain signals, aka real pain too. So I guess that last bit is when we talk about the sensitization.
Yep.
So some areas, if you...
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now, Dave has really just shared a personal experience of exactly what we were talking about yesterday, which is sort of reinforcing what we were talking about yesterday. And I think the highlight that I got out of this the most, which I learnt the most out of this is, here, Dave identifying that although he was getting this nerve reaction, which was sending this really intense pain, which is very, very real, it didn't necessarily, as Phil highlighted yesterday, and as we highlighted yesterday, the experience of pain that you're feeling does not necessarily correlate to the damage or the level of damage that's occurring or has occurred in the tissue. The two can be completely disconnected. So the fact that he was still experiencing this jolting pain down his leg, but the tissue damage had healed a long time ago, you know. And I think that's a really important point to highlight.
And so there's two really important things that I want to highlight there, which is when I was talking yesterday about the signal doesn't always match, like the stimulus doesn't always match your pain experience. Sometimes it does. And like that's really important to understand as well, is that, you know, you don't want to think about like there's always, you know, if you're feeling intense pain, is like it's all in, as I'm kind of really keen to make quite clear, saying it's all in your head is not to discount the pain and not to say that it's, you know, not important, not real. And yeah, sometimes people have a really, you know, when they get kicked in the shins and it really bloody hurts, it's fair enough.
I can give you an example. When I fell off the horse when I was a kid and I essentially spiral fractured. I didn't snap my spine, but I caused a compressive fracture to my spine to 3 of the vertebrae. The pain was real, man. And I remember coming to, and I had been like lying on the ground. If you've ever seen The Simpsons and Homer Simpson doing his like walk along the ground in circles on the floor, that's what my body was doing because it was in such a high state of, I guess, shock. I don't know.
And that's a totally like appropriate response to that pain experience, because your pain is your brain's perceived threat. And so if you've just fallen off a horse and fractured your spine, then that is a lot of threat to your body and your well-being and your survival. So it makes a lot of sense to send some serious signals there to be like, hey, whatever just happened there, we can't be doing that again. And we won't be like, and don't do anything now that might put your, you know, back at further risk if you were to get up and move. So that pain response is totally appropriate. It's the chronic pain when the response starts to become inappropriate, where I guess for this example of, you know, he's, which is going on to my second point, which is it's really interesting that he had this really intense pain, and it was only after he had the reassurance of the doctor and the physio saying, hey, you know, you can continue on doing these activities that you maybe thought you couldn't. So before he had that reassurance, all the thoughts, moods and beliefs about, you know, there's something wrong with me, my nerves are, you know, stuffed.
Yeah, I've got muscles that are compromised.
Yeah, exactly. So he's
buggered.
Exactly. So he's got an amount of sort of threat, and as we've talked about, as I just mentioned, that your pain is your perceived threat. So his threat levels are really high, and so any signals getting sent up there are going to be super amplified.
Yeah.
But now he's had this reassurance from the doctor and the physio that. The physical therapist here, that, you know, you've had an injury, but you're fine to continue resuming your activities. And so he was able to go through with that confidence. So he's turned down that threat level, and in turn has been able to get into movement, which has, you know, mentally it's, you know, given him confidence that he can do these movements without serious pain and understands the signals that he's getting, and his brain is readjusted to that to, you know, give him little jolts here and there, but.
And I think this is a key point. And if you take one thing from this entire discussion, this is probably something to consider taking out of this. That, in my opinion, is what a physiotherapist is for. So if you guys experience a traumatic pain, like acute injury or chronic pain, you should not go to the physio expecting that they're going to manipulate a few things and that pain is going to be fixed instantly. You know,
fixing is a real issue.
You know, you go for the guidance and the education, because this is what these guys specialize in: being able to determine what the appropriate course of action is going forward, and then guiding you on that course of action. And
which I might just point out is something that's, I guess, been a more recent change in the physio space, and that if you do see someone who maybe trained like 30 years ago and then hasn't done any continuing education, and like they might take a slightly different approach. And I'm really pleased that now in physio school, like there's a really huge focus on this side of things. So not to say that you should only see new grads, but just to be aware that
it's also the obligation of a specialist, of a healthcare specialist, same with us, to continually educate yourself. You kind of have to do it because things are changing a lot, and we're learning a lot about the body. You know, we didn't know a lot about the body 50 or 100 years ago, and that's when the education literature was put together, you know. So that's really something I want, you know, like as what Phil said there, and we sort of brushed over it. In many cases, the experience and the mechanism are aligned. You know, the feeling and the pain response is aligned to the amount of tissue damage, and it's not really the best thing for you to be deciding whether it is or not. That's where you go and see someone, and that's where you get the guidance of a good physiotherapist, or in America, physical therapist, to determine, you know, what the best course of action is.
Yeah.
You know? I don't want to start encouraging people to go out and deadlift and squat who are experiencing chronic pain if they haven't spoken with someone.
Yeah, exactly. With all of this, like, you know, and with Dave's example here, like, you know, we're giving you as much information as we can around it, but again, take the specific advice to a specific person. So
yeah, absolutely.
So just to kind of clarify things that, I guess, when there is an appropriate response, as we talked about here, the falling off your horse, you get that appropriate response. But you know, he's clearly had some inappropriate response here, where he's had this this injury and it's haunted him on a daily basis for a long time. And so again, it's those parts of either your physiological system. If you want to go into detail about this, go watch our video yesterday if you haven't already. But it's a physiological system that can, at the spinal cord level, amplify your pain if you've got kind of an oversensitized nervous system from inflammation or hormonal sort of changes, so with adrenaline or without adrenaline or that kind of thing. And then in the brain, it's about your thoughts, moods, and belief, which then again amplify or turn down those signals as well. So just if you haven't watched that, go back and watch yesterday. And
now, just quickly on that, the exact same thing happened to me with my spine, and for many, many years I thought that I couldn't do a deadlift and I couldn't do a squat because immediately when I attempted these movements, I felt quite a severe reaction in my lower back that was a very nervy pain, and it was intense. It was full on, you know. And that was even 12 years after the injury. So as we discussed yesterday, the tissues, the bone especially, has healed long time ago, you know, and often as after a fracture, bone heals stronger than it was before, you know. So there was no reason why I couldn't do this. The thing that was getting in my way was my ego and the fact that I was trying to train at a level that my peers were lifting weights at who had never had a compromise or a serious injury like that. And I was just trying things that were way too heavy for the point that I should have been entering at that point. You know, I thought, why can't I pick up 100 or 140 kilo deadlift? I get this reaction every time. I hadn't done the work, I hadn't banked the reps, I hadn't convinced my brain, and sometimes it's about tricking your brain into going, hey, hang on a minute, I'm actually okay, you know.
Yeah, which is something that we're going to be going into on Friday about the tactics to overcome this. There's some really well-researched sort of tactics to overcome this, but if I start going into that now, then we won't get through the rest of it. So we'll stay tuned for Friday for the how to trick your brain into doing all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if we go on to the next person, I guess. Oh, there was something else I wanted to just briefly mention there. Sorry, I got a bit distracted there. No, it'll come to me later. We'll go on to Jay. So Jay Sissom, aka Ratmaster 3, love that name. So he's said here that chronic pain has played a huge part in my own life, but thankfully I came across the work of Dr. John E. Sarno, a therapist in the UK called Georgie Oldfield, who runs Serpa UK. The work of Dr. Sarno has cured millions of people worldwide, and yet so many people still aren't aware of it because the cure is free. There is no pills, no physiotherapy that's needed, no equipment. It all comes down to the knowledge and understanding of how the brain works and why we have chronic pain. So I'd like to just pause there and point out when he says no physiotherapy that's needed, and this really gets me frustrated, which is, and something that I always have to... I just get really frustrated about, which is that people...
Fire up, Phil.
Yeah, that people... that physiotherapy is it's a profession. Yeah. But because of the way that physiotherapies have treated patients over the years, there's this sort of...
stigma.
Well, no, it's not that. It's that people see physiotherapy as a treatment.
Yeah.
Like when you're getting physiotherapy, that means different things to different people. Some people that means exercises. To some people it means that they're lying on a bed and getting things done to them, 3 times a week for months or years. And so getting physiotherapy done to you is what I'm really keen to try and change the understanding around, which is that you consult with a physiotherapist to figure out what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's not getting done to you, you're learning what to do.
Yeah,
so
that's
just
exactly
to point
right.
out there that, there's
Think of a physiotherapist as a health consultant.
Yeah, I like that.
And they're going to determine the best course of action, and that might be massage, that might be manipulation, that might be consulting like we're doing right now and strategizing. That might be designing a program for you and taking you out onto the gym floor, which Phil does often with his
I think I've had hands on
people.
one of my clients or 2 of my physio clients. Of all the physio clients I've had, I think I've maybe done a hands-on thing for 2 of them.
Yeah.
And everyone else is on the gym floor.
Yeah.
So.
And he gets a real mix. He has like elite level athletes and weekend warriors and everyday people and desk bound people. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Continue on.
the next one's the part that I had the biggest problem with.
So where were we? We had we haven't finished that one. So another YouTube channel to look on is Pain Free and You and Healing Wall of Victory. Definitely check it out. Books by Dr. E. Sano and also Steve Osnich will help you on the journey to regain control of your life. The syndrome the body suffers with is called TMS, Tension Myoneural Syndrome, which is also rebranded to Too Much Stress or the Mind-Body Syndrome. Norman George's book is also very interesting. So on the TMS that he's mentioned there, the Tension Myoneural Syndrome, I had a look at Dr. Sano's work, and I think you've just when I could only find tension myositis syndrome, which is I'm sure what you were talking about there, but that's one of the issues with these sort of overcomplicated, jargony names is that like often they don't really mean anything to people, and that's not at all to take away from what this guy is professing. Like I had a look at, I guess, just the basics of his approach to healing pain, and I totally agree with his approach, which is, as you said, it's not about pills, it's about kind of understanding your brain. It seems like there's lots of journaling in there. There's getting into regular activities and exercise, and I totally 100% love that. I just sometimes get a bit frustrated when people come up with their own syndromes just to...
Yeah, that's the thing that we discussed before coming on, and I 100% agree. It creates a level of complexity around an issue that's actually quite simple.
And it overcomes and it gives you a pain identity again.
Yeah, that's
like
exactly right. I'm suffering tension myoneural syndrome.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the exact thing that they're trying to break down. So here's the thing, and I know this from a business owner, it's a marketing ploy, and that's 100% it. It's about being able to create a uniqueness around your brand, and that's totally cool. I get it. He needs to do that to be unique and different and to attract people, but it doesn't help the grand scheme of things. Now, that's not to say that his methods aren't brilliant. I haven't done as much research as Phil, and it's what it sounds like is that he is absolutely bang on the money, and thank you
just very clear, I only had a quick look at his Wikipedia page. I just saw this message when I woke up this morning, and I've been only had a chance to have a quick look at it.
So thank you very much, Jay, for sharing.
Glad that he's had such a huge impact on.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And also, mate, I'm very much grateful for your style of copywriting here, where you leave lots of white space on the page. It's so very nice. And
unlike you, Graham Ricketts, who we're about to talk about.
Oh, classic. No. I like nice short sentences and paragraphs because my creative brain just goes all over the place. I used to be a bit dyslexic and have problems, so it's just so nice.
Found his,
Are you a copywriter, Jay? Is that what you do, or are you a marketing expert?
He's a brat master.
I want to know, because it's very rare that people break up. Most people...
All right.
I love it. Okay, Graham.
This is the one. All right. Fascinating stuff, guys, and great comments below, says Graham. I have a close relation who has all but given up on beating their chronic SI, so sacroiliac joint pain, following surgery, which has left the musculature on one side very weak and out of balance, in my opinion. If I tell them it's all in the brain, I'll probably be shot in the face. I will share the series with them and follow up. They put up with the pain, pop codeine.
Yeah,
pop codeine, and most days, and see the chiro once a month. I got them to try some light deadlifting recently, and they were fine. If no ill effects, I will encourage.
Absolutely,
more.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously it must be progressive. Let me start with this, because it's, and then Phil will probably tell you the right answer. I am so firm on the belief that psychology affects everything, and people often will become, the closest people to you will be the hardest to impact, and people hold on to identities. Their ego protects them from change, and if this person has become the compromised person who likes popping codeine pills and doesn't like to exercise, and they've got a reason and a valid reason for that for themselves, because they are, they had an injury at some point that caused them a lot of discomfort, and it's scary. Feeling intense pain is scary. It's not something that I wish upon anyone. I've certainly had my fair share of intense pain, and it's something that you get used to. It's in everything, in exercise exercise as well. You know, exercise can be painful at times, and especially for me, I used to box. It was painful. It's painful getting punched in the head, but you get used to it, believe it or not. And the first time it happens, it feels a lot worse than the last time it happens, you know?
Yeah. There's one thing that I'm a big Seth Godin fan. I was listening to him being interviewed the other day, and he was talking about with marathon running. He was saying that, you know, when the best people in the world run a marathon, they still get tired. Which is, you know, when someone who's just starting out to try a marathon, they get tired as well. But what the people who have, you know, trained to run marathons very well have done is they've learnt where to put the tired.
Yeah.
Like, they've learnt how to mentally deal with the tired and put it in a place where it's not an assault on their, you know, being and identity and making them like hurt. They've just learnt where to put that tired.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how it's exactly the same when you're wanting to achieve your goals, but you hit those kind of emotional blocks. And the same can be applied with pain. Is you're just learning where to put that pain. Like,
yeah, that's exactly right. You know,
and that pain might just be, you know, you're just putting it to the side, and this is assuming that you've been, you know, cleared to do whatever you are wanting to do. It's that you're putting it in that place. You're like appreciating and respecting your body, trying to be really helpful, and to, you know, it's always just looking out for you to, like, you know, it's that perceived threat again. It's trying to help you be safe. But once you've kind of, you know, learnt that, you know, what I'm doing is in fact safe, then...
Yeah, and it's like your ego trying to defend you from public scrutiny, you know.
Yeah.
Pain is trying to defend you from physical harm. And just like you have to disassociate from thoughts, feelings and emotions that are no longer serving you, you've got to learn to disassociate from pain that's no longer serving you. And that's, I guess, what this is all about, this discussion, you know. Someone who's been experiencing pain for a very long time and is in denial about the state that they're in, or is holding on to an incomplete picture, you know, I'm compromised, my body is hurting, and it's therefore I must be not be able to participate in certain exercise and things like that, and get moving, and I need these pills continually to manage that. That person, without learning, like without acknowledging that is no longer serving them, and they need to disassociate from it, it's going to be very hard for them to change their outcome and their behaviour and their thoughts and things like that, you know. So this is why it was so exciting to go into this topic off the back of what we spoke about before, because we did cover a lot on psychology and the reasons why people self-sabotage and don't achieve their goals and things like that. And it's very much the same thing, you know?
Yeah, and I'd say that, like, you know, if this is something that you really need help with unpacking, then seeing a professional psychologist is a good way of unpacking this, and sort of but, you know, also with physiotherapists who are now trained in sort of this biopsychosocial approach, bio being what's happening in the actual body itself, psycho being your psychology, and the social is also like the social parameters around you that impact what's going on. So if you're stressed at home, or, you know, your work is, you know, you have to do things for work, like all of these things do impact your overall health outcomes.
Absolutely.
So.
I've come across people that I've worked with who were on like social security benefits because of a workplace related injury, and part of their identity was they needed to get those benefits. So there was an element of I'm not suggesting that anyone doesn't want to get off benefits because they're injured, but there was a point where I was like, you need to, you know, really get over this on a much deeper level, because there's so much that you're holding on to in this past identity of you being injured.
And I just say with this kind of, you know, negative spiral of, you know, if you get in pain again, you will often then withdraw from activities, which will then, you know, if you're withdrawing from exercise, then you also lose those benefits of exercise, which are, you know, going to be the endorphins if it's sort of on the cardio side of the spectrum. It's going to be building up those muscular systems that support your body, and therefore if you've got less active support from those muscular systems, then you're more likely to have, you know, more strain put on your passive structures, so your bones, your ligaments, your joints, and then you're quite likely to increase your pain. And then also, you know, if you've got this downward spiral, often your eating goes out the window, and then your social life goes out the window, your sense of self-worth kind of goes down. And so all of these things, if you've been paying attention to all the factors that increase your pain experience, all of these factors are playing into things that will amplify your pain. Yeah. So it becomes really like challenging, I do feel, for people who suffer from chronic pain to start to overcome these. But you can see how it becomes a positive spiral once you do start to increase your exercise. You're also going to be improving your metabolic condition. You're also going to be improving, you know, your sense of, you know, social life. Like all of these things also, although they are a really tough negative spiral, they also do become a really positive spiral as well. Yeah. And that's
Now, we're going to wrap this episode up in just a few moments, and there's a couple of things that I really want to leave people
there's
understanding.
There's one big point that I'd like to make as well.
Yep. first and foremost, we are absolutely not saying that your pain isn't real and it's just fabricated in your imagination. Pain is very real, and I speak from personal experience on this matter. After having that horse riding accident as a young child, I was about 8 years old when I fell off the horse. It was excruciatingly painful going through big growth spurts as a teenager, and I was seeking the help of professionals, many different. We tried chiropractic, we tried aligning ourselves with physiotherapists, but they were all very much on the old, this is back in the 80s and 90s. We didn't have this level of education back then, and so it was very manipulative. See how that hurt. There was no encouragement to exercise a certain way or exercise at all. And I became heavily addicted to medication as well and drugs. And then that led me down a pretty deep spiral that led to, as I got older, alcohol abuse and all sorts of other things. So I speak from experience, and I'm telling you that there is light at the end of the tunnel if you can get through this. And it does take a great support network. And it wasn't until I met someone who helped me exercise on a level that suited where I was at that point in time, that my life didn't sort of really transform. And that's what led me to becoming a personal trainer. I was so inspired by the experience I had that I felt that there was an opening or a need to help other people. And that's what essentially led me on the path to where I am today. So I'm very grateful for my pain. I'm very grateful for the experience, because if that never happened, I could still be a mechanical engineer, or something like that, or something totally different. And I wouldn't be having the opportunity to talk to you guys and speak to everyone here. So, I just want to, say your pain is something that's real, and it's something that has to be dealt with. And we're not suggesting that it's manifested by you, or you're imagining it is a better word. But as speaking from experience, there is light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I would say that it is absolutely manifested by you, but that's not to say that it's that
it's fake.
Exactly.
It's not real,
Yeah, the point I want to have here is that when Graham's point here is if I tell them it's all in the brain, I'll probably be shot in the face. I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge, and what I really wanted this episode to hopefully kind of give more information about is that the fact that it's all in the brain is like, it does sound like you're discounting that pain, but 100% we're not. If you think about what happens when someone goes in for surgery, then they basically just put the person to sleep, so they just switch the person's brain off, and then they cut people open and do all sorts of things. If you've ever seen a knee replacement surgery, it looks more like carpentry, where they, are actually getting saws and hammers, mallets
as well.
It is full on stuff, and the fact that someone can be alive and going through that is just incredible. But the fact that they can go through that is because they have their brain switched off. So they're not experiencing that pain despite the fact that they are alive.
Yeah.
Now, when they come out of surgery, people with knee replacements, they don't tell you how much it hurts. And the thing is, it really bloody hurts. And that is because once you've switched on the brain again, you've suddenly got all these signals coming from that now very much changed knee. So yeah, I just really want to point out that the fact that it's in your brain, I know it sounds like it's discounting, but it's absolutely not. That's where we experience our consciousness. That's where we experience everything is through this brain. So anything you do experience in your head is very much real and important. And it's all just these, but it is influenced by all these factors that we've talked about. So it's a signal you're getting from your body, what you're happening in your physiology, your metabolic system, that impacts what's happening at your spinal cord level and whether that's being turned up or down. And then in your brain, it's your context. So if you're, running from something that is trying to kill you versus if you're, you'll probably experience a bit less pain. And if you're in a state where you've got your thoughts, moods and beliefs that are really feeling threatened by the experience and stimulus you're getting, then it will be more pain. So I just want to really I totally understand, Graham, that, if you say it's all in their head, it won't be helpful. But I think it's so key to understand that, your brain is you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, your brain is you. Let's leave it on that.
Yeah.
And remember, guys, one last time, we just had it up on the screen. You can now have all of this goodness, insight, love, connection via audio on the podcast. And we're on every mainstream podcasting app. It sounds amazing. Phil does a really good job of getting it up there. And
and this is I know that I just never get around to watching YouTube videos. And so if you know someone else who loves podcasts or maybe likes what we do, but or could really benefit from what we're talking about, but maybe they don't watch YouTube, then share the podcast. And also, please please smash the like button.
Smash that like button.
On
we had
YouTube,
a few people on here, and we've only had less than half
Yeah,
of
no
them hit the
comments.
like button, and there's no comments today. This is
just a bunch of
obviously a
people-
topic that is either confronting for people or people are just not interested.
And I've said this before, usually we get 10% of our viewers will hit the like button. It means so much to me if we get over that 10% number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, that's it for today. We're going to go a little bit deeper tomorrow, and then on Friday, we're going to wrap this series up with a whole bunch of strategies if you are experiencing some form of chronic pain. I really, really hope that this is connecting and resonating with the right people. I know that there's a lot of people in our audience that probably aren't, but it's also really useful for understanding that when you do sort of do something in the gym while you're training that hurts, go along and see a well-qualified person who's qualified to diagnose what that is. Don't use Dr. Google, and then move on from it. Don't create an injury identity for yourself. It's the worst possible thing you can do for rehab.
Yep, and I really encourage you, like, I'm sure if there's people who are watching this who don't have pain, they know someone who does. And
Yeah, absolutely.
So share it with them.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We love and respect you all, and we are absolutely grateful to share the time with you.
Yeah.
We will see you tomorrow. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's the
far.
consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.